Board members present, and there is a quorum. Fort Smith Public School board meetings are open to the public. However, audience members are not permitted to speak or interrupt the meeting in any way. Anyone choosing to disrupt the meeting will be asked to leave immediately. Our next agenda items, the district mission and vision statement. I'll read our mission statement first. Equip all students with the skills to be productive members of society. And our vision statement, we are a destination district built on relationships, collaboration, and a culture of excellence. Now, please stand with me as we pause for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, thank you all. And now for recognitions. Ms. Mundell, please introduce our recognitions for tonight. Ms.
Good evening, board members. My name is Kimberly Mundell, Executive Director of Communications and Engagement, and it is my pleasure tonight to recognize 5 teachers who were previously from Orr Elementary who now work at Cook and Ballman Elementary Schools. They have achieved different levels of high reliability teacher certification from Marzano Resources, which encourages and celebrates teacher effectiveness. So we have Koki Benton, who has completed level 1. Miss Benton has Ms. Benton has completed Level 1 Course 1, which focuses on improving instructional strategies, setting goals, and engaging students in school-wide service learning projects. Next up, we have Ms. Holly Pixley, Katie Roush, and Anna Lee York. And I take it we have one missing tonight. These 3 ladies have completed both courses of Level 1 that demonstrate effective instruction through video reflections, assigned lesson plans, self-assessments compared with reviewer feedback, and explanations of how teaching impacts student learning. And then finally, we have Miss Kim Gilman. Ms. Gilman has completed Level 3 certification, which is the highest level of HRT program. So teachers achieve this certification by ensuring that their grading and reporting methods are valid and reliable, and by providing statistical evidence to support them. Congratulations to these outstanding educators.
All right, thank you, Ms. Mundell. We will now open the meeting for public comment. This is designated time where community members can address the board on matters before us. We have 5 speakers who have signed up for tonight. Pursuant to board policy, each of the speakers will be provided with 3 minutes in which to speak. Each speaker is welcome to give their input, and you're encouraged to speak respectfully, avoiding statements about specific students or district staff members. Board members will listen to the citizens' participation but will not enter into dialogue with the presenter or respond at the time of the presentation. Board may choose to discuss the issue presented at a later meeting, but is under no obligation to do so. And at this time, we will now hear from those who wish to make public comment. The first person who signed up is Mr. Sean Carrier. Mr. Carrier, you can come up to the podium. You are recognized, sir.
President Person, Mr. Mahan, members of the Fort Smith Board of Education, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you here this evening. Okay. I have the high honor of being one of several community members here tonight requesting that the Fort Smith Board of Education name the Service Center in honor of Dr. Benny L. Gooden. I have emailed you and now present to you hard copies of numerous letters of support from retired teachers and administrators from Fort Smith, several community members and captains of industry, 3 retired assistant superintendents of Fort Smith Public Schools, 3 former presidents of this very Board of Education, 2 retired superintendents with distinction from our area, a retired executive secretary of the Arkansas School Band and Orchestra Association, a retired president of the Arkansas Education Association, the current mayor of Fort Smith, and former Governor Mike Beebe. The letters and my sentiments all basically conveyed the same message. Dr. Gooden's life and career on both the local, state, and national levels have brought honor to the field of public education and helped make Fort Smith a national model for how a school district should be run. The Board of Education, in their wisdom, set forth guidelines for naming a facility after a living person. And I quote from your guidelines 7.21, naming school facilities and mascot facilities. Except as otherwise permitted in this policy or Arkansas law, the district shall not name any building, structure, or facility paid for in whole or in part with district funds for an individual living at the time of its completion who, in the 10 years preceding its construction, was elected or held a federal, state, county, or municipal office and received a salary for his or her service. Exceptions to this preceding paragraph may be made when a building, structure, facility is constructed through the use of at least 50% private funds, or the name refers to 1, an individual or individuals living at the time of its completion who has historical significance, 2, an individual who has been a prisoner of war, is or has been a prisoner of war, and 3, a living individual who is at least 75 years of age and is retired. As you know, Dr. Gooden is retired from Fort Smith Public Schools. As at least 75 years of age, has not held elected office, and is a person of historical significance in the field of public education on the local, state, and national levels. I was so honored to be part of the evening when the Fort Smith Board of Education renamed Southside Stadium in honor of Jim Rowland. And I also know how highly Jim Rowland thought of Dr. Gooden. Norma Rowland was kind enough to write a letter and says as much in her letter of support. I saw multiple times the pride Jim Rowland and his family showed when they went into the stadium that bore his name. Dr. Gooden, I believe, and many others do, deserves the same honor. I put this for the board's consideration and trust in your judgment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carrier, and certainly appreciate your effort in organizing this effort. Next person who's signed up to speak is a person, when I saw him in here, I made the choice to make it a great day, Mr. Wayne Haver. Mr. Haver, great to see you, and you are recognized.
Mr. Person, Mr. Mahan, and the board. I'm Wayne Haver, a 48-year veteran of the Fort Smith Public Schools. I started in 71, and when Mr. Corbin was the superintendent, and I am the former Southside principal for 36 years, and taught for 4 and was assistant principal for 8. But I worked for 4 superintendents during my 48 years here in Fort Smith. Mr. Corbin for 3 years, Dr. Garrison for 18, and Dr. Gooden for 30, and Dr. Brubaker for 3. Of all the superintendents I've served under, Dr. Gooden was the most open, accessible, and approachable superintendent. He was a regular visitor to our schools. That it seldom happened. As good a superintendent as Dr. Garrison was, he seldom came to the schools. But Dr. Gooden would just show up, and he was at a lot of night activities also, such as band concerts and choral concerts and plays and many activities and athletic events. He was selected as Superintendent of the Year in 1996. He was, in 1999, he was selected as one of the 100 outstanding young educators in North America. Now, that ought to make a lot of people smile, and it's quite an honor for him in our city. He also, in 1999, he was the Arkansas PTA Principal of the Year, and was the recipient of the National PTA's Phoebe Apperson Hurst Outstanding Educator Award. Dr. Gooden is a legend in Arkansas educational circles. Dr. Gooden is the second longest serving superintendent in the state of Arkansas, second only to Lee Vint in the Clarendon schools. And Dr. Gooden served from August 1986 until 2015, 30 years, 3 decades, the total of 50 years in education before he retired. And I'm here today to recommend that the administration building be named the Dr. Benny L. Gooden School Administration Building. It will honor his long service to the staff and to the students from Southside, from the state of Arkansas. So I hope that you consider this very much. I will enjoy walking in to Benny L. Gooden School Administration Building. I used to tell Mr. Gooden all the time to make sure that all the employees, including the administration, stop at the sign out front and say Fort Smith School Service Center, because they were to serve us, and he did. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Haver. Good to see your lovely wife with you tonight. All right, next up is Ms. Jeannie Cole, former school board president herself. Hope you don't have PTSD being back here tonight.
Okay, don't take that off of me.
And
I've got a lot to say.
you are recognized.
Okay, I am Jeannie Cole. I did serve for 23 years on this board where you are now sitting. When I was asked to be part of this team, I was like, sign me up, I'm all into this. I talked to a couple of our former teachers, and we came up with a list of remarkable qualities for Dr. Gooden's legacy of leadership. And here's what we came up with. The stability that's already been mentioned. 30 years of dedicated service to this district, a truly exceptional achievement. Visionary. He maintained a broad perspective, seeing a big picture and forward-thinking ideas. Informed. Unlike many in the position, Dr. Gooden was always well informed of upcoming regulation changes and new funding sources, and it is remarkable that every Fort Smith Public School campus now has tornado shelters. That was due to Dr. Gooden being fundamental in finding those FEMA funds. He was an outstanding communicator. Few people had to ever wonder what he was thinking. Through citizen focus groups, legislative newsletters, or personal conversations. Advocacy. Dr. Gooden was a tireless and tenacious advocate for the needs of the children at both the state and national levels. He had played a vital role in educating legislators about the impacts that their decisions had on education, and he consistently championed the needs of the public schools. Supportive. Most Fort Smith Public School employees would agree that the administration truly supported them under his leadership. He recognized obstacles and made it a priority to provide necessary resources. Community connections. We know he was connected with legislators, city officials, civic and business leaders, further strengthening the district's ties to the community, which leads to the next point, community support. The success of the nonprofit programs begun under Dr. Gooden's leadership, such as Partners in Education and the Fort Smith Public Foundation, is a testament to the community support of these schools and serves as a model for other school districts. Support for extracurricular activities. His commitment to this was never ending. He understood that student involvement in these activities often improved academic performance, whether it was the sports or the music or drama or whatever it was. He was very often there. A leader among leaders. For many years, excuse me, he taught school governance and finance to aspiring superintendents. He led several Arkansas national education organizations, including presidency of the American Association of School Administrators. Excuse me. All of these qualities led to Dr. Gooden being recognized and honored as an exceptional leader. I think you will agree. Thank you.
Thank you for being here tonight. Our next speaker who signed up is Ms. Araline Betancourt. I hope I did not mispronounce that. And Ms. Betancourt, you are recognized.
I will be talking about the right sizing. Should the district keep a school open for students or close it and repurpose the building for staff? To many of us, this feels unfair. It is difficult to understand how a building can be considered unsuitable for children but acceptable for district employees relocating from another facility. Carnell is a newer building than Beard, especially after recent remodeling. One concern raised by the district is that only 5 of Carnell's 21 classrooms currently meet the state site standards. However, this is not an unsolvable problem. With improvements, these classrooms could meet standards, qualify for funding, and allow Carnell to serve more students. Another concern is low enrollment, but that did not happen by chance. For the past 9 years, Carnell has housed behavior and special education classrooms, or families were not allowed to register here. We currently serve 9 classrooms of students with significant needs. Enrollment cannot grow when capacity is limited and students are class-sized elsewhere. When Carnell had 2 classes per grade in 2018, families chose to stay, not because it was convenient, but because they valued the small, supportive environment. That close-knit community is exactly why Carnell works. Students are known, supported, and not lost in overcrowded classrooms. Many of our students have complex needs, including seizure disorders, feeding tubes, and students who are not yet able to use the restroom independently. Because of these needs, there must be at least 9 appropriate classrooms available between Beard and Kavanaugh. That capacity does not exist. It is not feasible for all 170 Carnell students from pre-K through 5th grade to be absorbed by just 2 schools. They would need to be spread across 3 or 4 campuses to be served safely and appropriately. Parents and staff have been misinformed. Closing Carnell is not a simple or realistic solution. And finally, we must ask, why are there 5 other elementary schools, including Beard, that have depreciated far more than Carnell and are not being considered for closure first? Those were the schools the community expected to be discussed, not a well-maintained, newer building like Carnell. While larger schools may align with long-term plans, closing Carnell ignores the facts that the needs of its students and the voice of the community it serves. This decision does not add up, and it deserves serious reconsideration. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your comments, Ms. Betancourt. And the last person who has signed up to speak is Ms. Jo Elskin. Ms. Elskin, welcome back, and you are recognized.
Yeah, I do feel sorry for you if you do not honor Dr. Gooden, okay? I've taught for 44 years and volunteered in schools after that, so unfortunately I have opinions. I have opinions tonight on the right sizing and on the observation. So on right sizing, if it involves closing schools, that is critical to low-income neighborhoods. And the reason I say that is that I have been, for the last 3 or 4 years, going into 4th grade classrooms, every 4th grade classroom in the city, or Smith District, teaching litter and waste presentations. And I've seen those schools on that level, and to me, a smaller classroom in a low-income area makes a big difference in the improvement of the students. I have seen amazing teachers in those classrooms. The kids love them and want to do what the teacher wants them to do. So I just think consideration of what progress can happen with smaller classrooms. The other thing is the observations. You know, I didn't always follow the rules, right, Mr. Haber? I'm sorry. I was always terrified about observations, but having been in so many classrooms, I feel like observations have been really good when the person going in is helping the teacher who really doesn't quite get it. Because they can be talented and smart, but they may not have the heart. Of course, I wish that every school had an adjunct teacher who had that ability to work with kids and could be identified to go into this classroom and help this and help that. I think that kind of person makes a world of difference with kids. And whoops, so I just hope that y'all consider both those points. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Elskin. And board members, I'd request that if any of you would like to further discuss the items that were brought up during citizens' participation, I think board forum is the appropriate venue given the agenda has been set for this meeting. So let's discuss them at that time if you all have any comments. All right. If nothing further, we will move to our next agenda item, which is the superintendent's report. Mr. Mahan, we will not put you on a 3-minute timer, but you are recognized.
You may know me too well. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. I just want to remind you of a couple of things that we try to keep in front of you, but we have some work sessions that are coming up that's been part of my focus this year. In January, we will discuss Darby and the school-based health clinic, as well as the Health Science Academy. We'll do a work session around that. Looking for dates in March to do the communications work session that was suggested at our last board meeting. And then in April, we'll put together a work session to kind of give you the background behind the scenes around transportation and child nutrition. We also have board training in next session. We've scheduled 2 retreats or training sessions this year. We had one early in the year. We have a follow-up in February with Mr. Poore and Marshall and I. We'll be at the Marshall's Museum for that training, so I'm looking forward to that. January, I intend to give you a mid-year update on the goals that I have presented as part of my evaluation, 16 goals. I just want to give you an update in our board meeting in January to go through the 16 goals and kind of let you know where we are on each of those goals. Cyber event in July, we currently have 363 current employees signed up for Aurora, our identity theft protection. I'd like to keep you posted on those numbers. And then also consent agenda, and I'd like to point out a couple of things to draw your attention to. We had some buses on last consent edition, accidentally left a couple off that we intend to auction off. Those are added to consent tonight. There's also a parents as teachers consent agenda item. It's an annual event that's just an annual event for approval. And we also have a staffing capacity resolution by Dr. Farrell that was discussed last month in the consent agenda. I'd also like to give you an update on listening tours. We've been to at least 11 campuses so far this year. Should have a slide pop up for that to kind of give you the positions that we've been to so far this year. And this is the intent of the listening tours is to just make sure that we are accessible to our staff, to hear from them about things that they see that the district's doing well or obstacles to student learning. And what we've wanted to do, we've strategically placed them out over the entire school year. Those are all complete. We won't have one at Southside tomorrow, but those will be the completion first semester, and then we will intentionally do the next round second semester because I expect trend data to be dictated by the time of year we're asking questions. There may be different things that arrive. But I want to share some of the few of the trends we're hearing across the district, which is the next slide. When we ask what is this district doing right, we're getting a lot of encouraging comments around transparency and visibility that we've continued to focus on as the board has previously. Also encouragement around fostering a listening and seeking feedback environment, and a lot of positives around the communication that our staff are receiving this year. Things that are challenges are to student achievement, student behavior. When I say student behavior, that's a subject that contains some special ed needs for intervention, also for behavior intervention, things of that nature. We've done some things at OR, and we'll continue to look at ways to help with that. But that student behavior encompasses all aspects of just needing assistance. One of the schools, and I believe it was Bonneville, had a great suggestion, and my team is will be looking at that, is looking at a model where maybe we look at paraprofessionals in all of our K2 or K3 building classrooms just as a resource to assist. So, of course, we prioritize that with funding and budget, but something that we heard, and I thought that was a great thing. Staffing as well. Always hear that there's issues that were not staffed appropriately or understaffed or more staff needed in specialty areas. And then parental involvement, just ways, seeking ways to get parents more engaged in student learning. We all know that the more engaged parents are, the better the outcomes are on our campuses. Also, we ask, what's one thing we should start, stop, and continue? One of the things to start is additional student supports in all arenas of student support, as I mentioned earlier. Stop capacity overload or too many students per classroom. Of course, we're following state standards. We're not violating state standards, but everyone would like to have a smaller classroom environment. And then also continue the great communication. And then also like to ask, what do you need from me? What do you need from our team? And that's, again, just continue to look at ways to improve student support across the district. So those are just some things that kind of rose to the top across the district. I just want to share that with you tonight just to keep you posted on that progress. And then we also had a lot of fun doing some Thanksgiving dinners this year. That'd be the next slide. And there's some great pictures there. Go back one more. Well, our admin team got out and actually worked in the kitchen for a full session of lunch for Thanksgiving. And first of all, we did that to support our staff, but also just to point out we have great people that are serving our breakfast and lunch. They're committed to excellence. They're committed to our kids, and we just really wanted to encourage them and just show up to help. And they do phenomenal work. There may be some question around why I needed a hairnet. I will say the gentleman that works there has a very similar hairstyle, was wearing a hairnet, so hey, if he's wearing one, I'm wearing one, so there you go. Also, the next slide, we'll talk about our Southside High School Quiz Bowl. Southside High School's varsity quiz bowl team recently won the Friends of Quiz Bowl tournament at Bryant Junior High on Saturday, December 6th. So far this season, Southside's varsity team has built an impressive 27-1 overall record. In November, the Mavericks were voted the #1 team in the 7A in a recent poll of coaches. They continue a culture of excellence with their Quiz Bowls team. We're very proud of them. Also very proud on the next slide, at the great event at Peak, I believe 2 Saturdays ago, where we just had a whole day of competitions around Lego robotics. I think I sent you some pictures and weekly superintendent's report. Just great participation, packed house, hands-on STEM-related instruction, but Wood Sight Seekers Champions Award in Robotics Performance, Bauman Bashing Bots Robot Design Award, Chaffin Cougar Coders Engineering Excellence Award, Beard Technicians Breakthrough Award, Fairview Falcons Rising All-Star Award, Ramsey Rams Motivate Award. They all showed up and showed out, so we're very proud of our teams. Also, you also have all seen information on the playground groundbreaking. We proudly celebrated the first groundbreaking at Barling Elementary for their new playground, and students from every grade level joined in breaking the ground, which was the best part of the day, to see them help in breaking that ground for their new playground, which all of our kids are very excited about. We're grateful for the opportunity to invest in safe, accessible play spaces for our students. And then finally, one of the great events, and I know we had probably close to 500 students that participated in the Christmas honors, and it is an honor just to serve in the capacity of fluffing the wreaths, tying the new ribbons on, and helping place those in our national cemetery. So proud of our students that are volunteering to do that. I think it's such a great honor to be a part of that, and also ask our administrative team to take part in that this year as well, and just wanted to do some work around that great endeavor. We're very proud of that. And with that, any questions about my superintendent's report? Okay, thank you all.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mahan. The next agenda item, board members, is the consent agenda. As you all know, the consent agenda is voted up or down as a whole unless a board member asks to remove an item for independent consideration. Board members, are there any items you would ask to be removed from the consent agenda?
The FPS parent United Way contract, I forget which number it is.
Subpart 6.
Yes, if I could remove, or just request to remove that for a little bit further explanation and
Sure.
background.
Okay. Any other items? All right, at this time, I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented with the exception of Subpart 6.
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Kraft. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. And that passes by a vote of 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Mr. Harding, what questions do you have regarding Subpart 6, United Way, FSPS Parents as Teacher Contract Agreement?
No, so I don't know much about it, and I'd just like to understand a little bit more before we vote to approve it. How many years have we been doing it? What specific obligations is the district or the parents and teachers under? What has to change, or does anything change with this year's agreement?
Good questions, Dr. Minton. I believe you have some information regarding that. If you'll step up to the microphone, please.
Good evening, everyone. We have been participating with United Way in support of parents and teachers for over 12 years now. The grant award was considerably more in the past, but as United Way has continued to diversify, the grant award, while still much appreciated and significant, has decreased. It's used to provide part of salary and benefits for our parents as educators, teachers. We blend funding sources. Certainly the $12,000 is not sufficient to fully fund 2 parent educators, but when combined with other funding sources, we are able to help maintain this program. And we serve approximately 150 students each month.
Dr. Minton, would you go into detail about how we serve those students? Give us an example of that.
Absolutely. The parent educators are trained in a curriculum that is a precursor to pre-K, and these individuals go to the homes and work with parents to help parents become teachers, believing that parents are the first and best teachers of their children. So we equipped those individuals with the skills necessary to further facilitate that learning. We also provide developmentally appropriate materials, be it books, blocks, resources each month.
Thank you, Dr. Minton. Anything further, Mr. Harding?
So any change with this year's contract or agreement?
No.
Okay.
No, sir.
Anything from any other members of the board on agenda item 8, subpart 6? I see none. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. And that passes by a vote of 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Thank you, board members. And thank you, Dr. Minton. The next item on the agenda is to consider adopting the 2026-2027 school year calendar. Mr. Mahan.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is always a complex exercise, but our HR department, as well as our PPC, certified and classified, spend a lot of time looking at different options around the parameters that are defined by the state in regards to our calendar. We have to look at a model around minutes and days versus allow the days to fit the contract. But we also have the minutes as part of that because we need to bank days to be used for snow days. This year we have 3 days that are banked. Hopefully we don't have to use any of them, but if weather allows, we'll have those days that we can use for snow days and not make up. Great thing about this proposal is there's 5 days in this calendar with the great work of our PPC. So, Dr. Davis?
Mr. Person, Mr. Mahan, members of the board, thank you for allowing me to come and speak, but I am the spokesperson, but I will tell you that there are lots of individuals that work tirelessly to get this calendar off the ground. We actually start working as soon as the PPC convenes after summer break so that we can start and have a calendar ready before we leave for the winter recess the year before so that families have time to plan. So lots of work goes into this. Just to give a real quick refresher about what an alternate calendar is. A traditional calendar is a 178 student day calendar. It's the equivalent of about 6 hours of instruction per day. 2 years ago, the board elected to go to an alternate calendar, which allowed us to use instructional minutes as a part of that calendar because our school day was already longer than a traditional 6-hour school day. And so an alternate calendar requires a minimum of 1,068 hours per year. That's the equivalent of 178 student days. It requires that we have 30 hours of makeup time built into the calendar. But there are no minimum number of actual days that students attend. It's all based on hours. And so the calendar that you have before you today, the 26-27 calendar, and we'll look a little more deeply at it in a few slides, but this calendar has 174 student days. One of the big benefits of this calendar was the removal of flex days. Teachers, they really didn't like working over the summer, and the staff that were managing the pre-approvals, the staff that were managing making sure that everyone met those requirements or that we had something relevant for them to do on those days if they did not complete those flex days. So the removal of those 2 days of flex days allowed us to add in 2 more student days so that we could go from 3 snow days to 5 snow days built in. Some of the feedback that we received from last year's calendar was that we actually had to attend school longer for about 45 days. We had to extend the day because we used more than the 3 allotted snow days. Everything else about this calendar is exactly the same. 2 parent-teacher contract, 2 days for parent-teacher contracts. Those parent-teacher nights are 2 half nights per semester, and so that's how we come up with the 2 days. That's required by state law. 6 professional development days, 6 collaboration days, and 2 teacher work days. And so that's how we come up with a 190 teacher contract day. So how do we get here? So it starts, like I said, late August, early September with the calendar committee gets together to start discussing proposals. We look at feedback from prior years' calendars when we send out a parent and family survey. Once we get that feedback, we go and we draft a calendar based on the requirements. So we're looking at when is the 38th week from July, the first full week in July, so that we can determine where spring break is. We're looking to make sure that when we apply last year's calendar into next year's dates, that we don't have days that require students to only attend 1 day in the week. And so we make those adjustments. We also look at where Thanksgiving falls. We look at the winter holiday. We just kind of apply that. We look at the feedback to make sure did the PD or collaboration days fall in the calendar where they made the most sense for families, but also where they made the most sense at the ends of quarters so that teachers had the opportunity to collaborate. Prior to adding collaboration days to our calendar, we were pulling teachers out of the classroom during instructional time and putting a substitute in the classroom. We found that by going with minutes, we could build some extra time in there so that we wouldn't have to do that and still allow teachers to collaborate. So once we get through the calendar committee, then we go and we send out a stakeholder feedback survey. That survey went out. We had about almost 1,000 responses. We look at that feedback. We look, do we need to make any adjustments? From there, we go to a personnel policy committee and a classified personnel policy committee vote. And then once that goes to a vote from those 2 bodies, then it comes to the school board for approval. So here are 2 drafts of the calendar. The reason there are 2, there's a district calendar that just gives the meaningful information for families. What's the first day that the students need to show up? When do they not need to show up? And then where are parent-teacher conferences, graduation, and the sorts. So this is the district calendar with just that information. It lists the start times for minutes tracking. It also lists the number of hours, because there are hour requirements per quarter or day requirements per quarter. It also gives some caveats in there about inclement weather, the number of days that are built in, what are we going to do in the event that we need to make an adjustment for inclement weather, those things. The next calendar goes into quite a bit more detail about, now this is the calendar for staff to look and see, okay, I need to show up these days. I should expect professional development or a teacher work day or collaboration days or when the holidays are. And so this gives them more detail about what's expected on those days that are actual work days. So feedback. So when we look at the feedback from the survey that we took, I'll talk about certified personnel. The PPC approved the calendar by a vote of 25-1. But there is a feedback survey, and they were able to provide some feedback for that. Some positives: no flex days. I believe in that committee meeting where we announced that we were proposing a calendar that it didn't involve flex days. I think there was an applause for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Peer. And I will give Ms. Peer a chance to come and share any information that she would like in a moment. Classified personnel, it passed unanimously. But back to positives. Having 5 snow days built in. As I said earlier in the presentation, when we had to make that adjustment to add 7 minutes to the school day last year, that was confusing to families. And so this was a way that we could have all of the time built into the day and not have to worry about making it up if we needed it. Also, when we decided to go with 3 snow days, we did about a 10-year study of how many snow days or inclement weather days were used in the calendar, and 3 seemed to be appropriate. When I kind of dialed in after COVID and now, 5 is a more realistic number. Anywhere from 4 to 5 is the number of days that we've been out for the last 4 years. So it makes more sense that way. And then the other positive is that we're finished before Memorial Day. That was a big advantage. Students are finished before Memorial Day in the 25-26 calendar, and the 26-27 calendar. Not only are students finished, but staff are finished as well. Again, like Mr. Mahan said, anytime you're looking at the calendar, you're looking at the number of days before Christmas. If the Christmas holiday falls in a weird spot, or if Easter falls in a weird spot, it's amazing when you start looking at a calendar, all the things that get in the way. And so there are some things that do get in the way when you're trying to make the perfect calendar. This year, the start date was a critique of the calendar. For 26-27, the first teacher day is, I believe, August the 3rd. That is the same corresponding day that it was this year, which was August the 4th, and has been relatively the same corresponding day. It just backs up 1 day each year, depending on where the Wednesday is that we're targeting for the first student day. Classified personnel feedback, roughly the same as the teacher feedback. And then families, when a family's looking at a calendar, they're looking at, do the holidays align with national holidays? Their most important aspect of the calendar is, when do I start taking my kids to school, and then when do I stop taking my kids to school? And so they're very appreciative of the fall break, having that 2-day fall break, the Friday, Monday. They're also very appreciative of the winter recess. Having at least a 2 full week winter recess is always a positive, and then also having a full week off at Thanksgiving, which we have not always had. All right. So with that, I will ask Miss Wendy Peer if she would like to come and share any information from our, as a representative. She chairs the calendar committee for our certified personnel policy.
All right, thank you. Good evening, and thank you again for the chance to speak with you tonight. The calendar has been, as Dr. Davis said to me once, has been a passion. I've done it for about 6 or 7 years now, and to see the evolution of a calendar that people like. all right? You know, we didn't have a full week at Thanksgiving until we started getting the feedback, and now we fight for it. You know, last year, the year before was the first time we had the fall break, and we had been asking for that for a long time. Having a day off for the teachers after parent-teacher conferences has been something that people didn't know they needed till they had it. Right? So to see the fact that we are able to give feedback, that we're getting feedback from families, we're getting feedback from not just teachers, but every educational professional in our district is amazing. And the fact that that feedback is being implemented as much as the calendar will let us is an amazing process that we have gone through, and I'm very excited to be a part of it. And we almost have a perfect calendar. I don't think it'll ever be perfect, but we're getting pretty close. And those flex days, they had a really, really good purpose. Implementation just was not going to fly. So we are very thrilled. I keep getting, are you sure? We don't have to do that anymore? Yes, we're free. So. Questions, comments? Thank you again for your time, for your interest, and your support.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Mayor.
All right, with that, since I didn't hear any questions earlier, I'll just step away from the mic.
All right, board members, who's up first? Ms. Hall.
Yes, Ms. Pierre, everything you said as a former teacher about the week at Thanksgiving, and, you know, the weeks at Christmas, and definitely being off right after parent-teacher conferences. They need a breather for sure, so that's greatly appreciated. I have a question about the process. As a parent, I remember in the past we used to have 2, sometimes 3 calendars proposed to us for us to look at and go through and vote on, and then I think maybe it went through PPC before that or after that, but regardless, what has happened to that along the way?
You're talking about having multiple options of the calendar? Mm-hmm. So I guess probably this is the 3rd year that we've presented one singular calendar for feedback. That was really the switch from a traditional calendar, which was 178 days, to an alternate calendar. We felt like it was more advantageous for us to get feedback and then build a calendar than for us to kind of try to predict, okay, here's an option where we're going to include these things. Here's an option where we're going to include, for instance, some families really want a Wednesday start of the school year. And we hear lots of feedback about let's ease into the school year. But then there are some families that are like, how dare you start on Wednesday? What am I supposed to do with my kids on Monday and Tuesday? And so what we would do is we would get all of that feedback, and it was easier for us to make adjustments and get a calendar that's really dialed into what the families want, what teachers want, what our support staff want. And so for about 3 years, because the minutes can be a little complicated to making sure that we get the appropriate number of minutes per quarter, when spring break is, when all of the requirements for a calendar. That was the way that the PPC as well as the district administrations just chose to move forward.
Okay, and then it says, I wrote it down, it says on here, we've got, where are we at? 1102 hours.
Yes.
We have more hours this year than we have had in the past. So we are attending longer, going to school longer and hours-wise than what's required. And then comments that I have read when I read through the 59 pages of responses. Mm-hmm. I don't know if the other board members were able to see that, but that's a testament to the transparency and the trust and everything that's building within this district, is that we did receive 59 pages worth of comments and responses from stakeholders within the district, teachers, parents, and all that. But reading through that, a common theme that I saw, there were 2, was 1, we're starting earlier once again. I went all the way back to the very first year that we did minutes, and that year we started August the 19th, and we got out May the 21st. And this year, now we're starting August the 12th, and we're getting out May the 21st. Mm-hmm. So what is happening with that? That's my first question. And I'll get to the second one in a minute because it has to do with staff.
Okay, all right, I was going to write them down so I could remember. Mm-hmm. So the first question there, why we had, the state requires 1,068 hours. Last year, I believe, let's see, 25, 26, we had 1,089 hours. That built in 3.6667 student days. In order to get to 5 snow days, we had to get to about that 1,100 mark. And so that's why there are more instructional days, or excuse me, instructional hours, is so that we can build those 5 days in.
So if it comes to where we don't use those days, has there been discussion that we get out 2 days early instead of going those extra hours?
There certainly are discussions around that. What I would say is that anytime we make kind of a fly-by-night change to the calendar, that affects families, that affects when parents are getting daycare and things like that. And then also just to make sure that we ensure that, you know, that's instructional time that we're able to have before state assessments. That's instructional time that we're able to have before the AP exams. And so to limit the amount of confusion, we've just made the decision that.
So what days are they? Because they're not listed, so I'm not sure, like, where are you getting it that it's before the AP test and it's before all of these tests? What days are they?
They're all, because it's divided out among the entire 174 student days. Those extra minutes that are added to each day are all built in so that there aren't identified, okay, this day is a snow day, this date is a snow day. If we have snow, then no one attends that day.
Well, the Atlas assessment, usually is March, April, but your AP exam are as late as after graduation, as late as late May. For me, having the 5 additional snow days is very beneficial because unfortunately we had to make weather decisions on a prediction, and sometimes it's nice to say the prediction looks bad. Let's let parents know today that we're not going to have school tomorrow. When we have a little bit of flexibility with 5, as a superintendent, just speaking for me, there's some comfort in knowing that those days are there. If you have 3 or less, then you're going to think, okay, let me wait till the very last minute to be sure that the weather is going to be very difficult. There's not quite as flexibility. And then on the question around additional days, to me, just as a former teacher or administrator, more time in the classroom is advantageous for our students. So I think it's a benefit for our students. If we get it, we just don't know what the weather will be like.
Yeah, it's Arkansas weather.
Yeah.
You never know. Okay, and this my second question. Of the 59 pages, at least once, sometimes twice, on every page, talks about these collaboration days. And feedback was not good on the collaboration days. What is your response to that?
So,
Well, sorry. These collaboration days, the biggest thing that I saw was, why are we doing collaboration days after school is out? Can we not move those days to other days earlier in the year where it's actually more beneficial to the teachers? Why are we collaborating May the 24th and 25th at the end of the school year?
certainly. No, those are valid questions.
That was the main negative on that.
Certainly, those are valid questions, and what I would just make sure that we give in full context here. So feedback, and I'm not going to call and put Dr. Minton on the spot here, but when we did our last survey after our most recent collaboration day, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. Now, I'm not going to say that we don't have kinks to work out because I've got Ms. Peer back there who will give me an eye. But what I will say is this is brand new. Last year was the first year for collaboration days. We're starting to figure out what are the things. Anytime you start something new, it's a learning process. And I think what you and I don't want to speak for you, but what we have been is we've listened. And we've tried to make adjustments to make sure that we're meeting the needs of what our teachers want for those days. Are we perfect? No. Are we going to get better? Absolutely. And so we've talked in our last PPC meeting about who do we need to bring to the table to make sure that those collaboration days make the most sense, or spaced where they need to be in the calendar, so that we can get the most bang for our buck for those days. So I will admit that yes, we do have some work to do. But I will also say that it is a work in progress.
And we're also following the guidance of a 190-day contract too. So we're building that out at the same time we're building a calendar. And sometimes some of the placements honestly don't particularly make sense in certain parts, but it's about how to make almost a Rubik's Cube come together in that process. So that's the other part. The 190-day contract is we want to honor that as well.
Yeah.
Right, and that was the biggest complaint, was that May the 24th and 25th. Why are we collaborating when school is out? Like, kids are already gone, unless, we have those make-up snow days.
Yeah.
That was the main one.
So what we want to do there, and we have collaboration days periodically spaced out throughout the quarter, or excuse me, each quarter throughout the year. Those collaboration days at the end of the year are really designed for planning for the next school year. And so that's really where you're able to look at, you finally have a couple of days to breathe. You have a couple of days to look at what went well during this year, reflect on what can we do differently, how do we build, do we need to restructure, reorganize where our units are taught, things like that. So that's really what the purpose of those days are for the next year. Great questions, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Who's next? Any other discussion pertaining to the
I
calendar?
just knew everybody would have at least 5 questions.
No, all good questions, though. Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve or adopt the 2026-2027 school year calendar as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Whitaker. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you, Mr. Harding. Further discussion from the board? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. And that passes by a vote of 7 in favor and 0 opposed. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Dr. Davis, as well. Next item on the agenda, we will now hear from members of the curriculum and instruction team as they present updates from their department. Mr. Mahan.
Okay, I believe we're going to go over to Dr. Kimberly Starr first and Dr. Jones. We're going to hear a little bit about some snapshot data review, also a seal of bioliteracy, which we're very proud of, and our Computer Science Academy, which I've got my wires crossed more than once, but I was excited to know we're starting that this fall coming up. And our outstanding adult education, we're going to cover those things for you tonight. So, Dr. Starr, you'll get us rolling.
Good evening, Mr. Mahan, Mr. Person, and school board members. It's my pleasure to get to present the first part of this informational slide on our snapshot data, which is something that we are really excited to use, and Dr. Jones will do the second half of this. I'm going to see if this clicker works. It did. Okay, good. We always begin our slides, especially during principal meetings and when we're working together, with this slide. Now, I know you've already heard the mission and the vision this evening, but the values are there as well that I know you are all very, very aware of. But this is our why. This is why we do what we do and why we continue to improve as a district to become that destination district while always keeping our students' needs at our heart. We have our relationships and accountability. We always operate with transparency and prioritize student and staff safety, which goes perfectly with our snapshot tool. Because our snapshot tool is aligned to our instructional model, and it is a way for the administrative team to be able to make sure that what is happening in our classrooms is helping our kids as well as our teachers. It's based on our instructional model, and then I need to give kudos to Dr. Lori Yates, who made it into an app for us that's very user-friendly, and that app also gives the data that we will be looking at here in just a couple of minutes. So the elementary principal team, as well as the secondary principals, we work together when we get this data back to see what kind of professional development we might need, as well as any other needs that might arise for both our teachers and our students to make sure that we are able to assist. So there are 4 areas of the snapshot tool that you see before you, and there's lots of little writing there that I am not going to read to you, so breathe easy. We're going to just bring some highlights. So let's look at number 1. That's on grade level instruction. That is a focus this year. We are very intentional as we go into classrooms to make sure that is happening. We want to make sure the instructional material is aligned. We want to make sure that we are on a grade level standard, basically the right standard at the right time with the right rigor. And we want to make sure, can the students articulate their learning? Do they know why it's relevant? That encompasses pretty much number 1. Number 2 is all about effective feedback, and that is feedback on their learning, so the students would be able to extend their learning through some of the feedback they receive. How the students get to check their work as well as assessment, and looking at whether or not they are having peer feedback or how the feedback is being presented to them, even through some of our curriculum documents. Number 3 talks about high student engagement, and there's a bunch of different pieces that we look, but just to bring it to the surface, we are looking at pacing at that point. What's the pace of the lesson as we're watching and learning along with the kids? We look at the rigor again at that point. We listen for the student discussions and the collaboration, and we love watching our teachers do their questioning techniques because they are becoming so excellent at that work. And then especially in the elementary sector, we want to see some movement pertaining to that learning. Some of you that have gone into the elementary classrooms during phonics have seen the touching of the hands and things. Well, that keeps the kids engaged, but it also really helps them cement that learning. And then number 4 is the safe learning environment. It's more than just whether they feel safe in that classroom. It's does the learning reflect their needs? Has the teacher put them in intentional small groups? Is there a mix of students in a way that really helps them to be able to understand and get excited about their learning? And then, of course, we do look at student and teacher respectful behavior and even the classroom arrangement. Sometimes we as teachers get our classroom arranged how we think it's going to work, but the kids kind of tell us that there's another way and a better way for that. So let's look at just elementary data. As you can see up here on this chart, our data shows that we are getting more observations this fall than we did last fall. The principals and Dr. Jones and I decided we were going to try to make sure every teacher had 3 times that we came in and looked to see how the kids were learning. And in the fall of 24, it was 819, but this fall it was 833, so we have increased that. And then as you look at our percentages, you can see that 69% of the time they are on grade level instruction and they are doing the right standard at the right time. We want that to be higher. I know that's probably what you're thinking, why isn't that 100% of the time? We're working really close and we're very intentional in helping our teachers with that and helping our kids be ready for that as well. Feedback remained the same at 59%, and as I already kind of alluded to, we review the way that feedback is given to kids, whether it's a written feedback or a verbal, whether it was by the teacher or if they're doing peer groups. I've gotten to see that a lot in the writing lessons. They are having peer feedback on the writing, which has been really exciting. Love peer-to-peer feedback. And then high student engagement increased from 56 to 57%. Again, we want that engagement to be really high, and our teachers are working diligently at it, and we see improvements all the time. And finally, safe learning environment went from 82 to 86%, and we really are seeing more intentional grouping. We can tell by the way that the teacher frames that it's intentional. So that makes it more relevant to the kids to make that safe learning environment. But additionally, we love seeing the wonderful behaviors and how the teacher is respectful of the students are respectful of the teacher and each other. So that's elementary in a nutshell. Dr. Jones is probably hanging out behind me, ready to do middle school and high school.
All right, I'll talk a little bit about middle school first. We measure the same areas that elementary measures that Dr. Starr has already spoken about. I don't look at any of those and am necessarily satisfied or thrilled. The thing that I try to keep in mind, it's just like when we look at state assessment data, although it's looking like it goes up and down, it's measuring a different set of kids each year. And with this, we have teachers retire, we have teachers resign, we get new teachers coming in. Sometimes it's even hard just to learn everybody's name for a high school principal when you have a staff that large. So finding those training systems and continuing to support those teachers and learning how to do all the different tasks that they have to do is very challenging, but we need these numbers up here to see where we are in the process. As Dr. Starr mentioned, we were more adamant this year about just getting in the classrooms. The citizen that spoke up here talked about going through some of the observations that you go through, and I, as a teacher, went through that myself, and it is a little bit nerve-wracking. But I think our administrators do a good job of building that trust and rapport with those teachers so they're not seen as a threat coming in there, because we do have to know where we are in terms of measuring these things that we measure. But our main focus is that first category up there with on-grade level instruction. And again, that's not anything to ride home about, but it is looking at a different set of people, and it is nice to see that we are continuing to work and seeing some gains. High school on that first category is a little bit different picture. We've gone down 11%, and I'm not happy with that necessarily, but after speaking with Mr. Pruitt and Mr. Carter, it's probably more of a true indication of where we are in high school. If you look at fall 2024, we had 206 observations around this time last year, and we've almost doubled that. And we're at 71% of our students receiving grade level instruction. Middle school is 72, and elementary is 69. So that's a little bit more on par with where we are as a district. So that's probably more of a true indicator for where we are, that about 71% of our teachers, when we go into the classroom, are doing these three things right here. And we have to teach the right standard. You know, as a new teacher, sometimes they don't fully always understand where they are in the curriculum. Has to be at the right time and keeping the pace that they're supposed to keep, and then just the right difficulty of that standard that we're assessing for those students. So the thing that we like to inform the teachers is clarity is kindness, and clarity about your starting point and your destination turns into purpose. And that's what we're trying to do, is be clear where we are in our learning and be clear where we are in our teaching practices so we can get better. Any questions for elementary or secondary related to our snapshot data?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Curious on how these observations go. So you go in the classroom, and like in the elementary school, if grade level instruction is not being given, does that mean something else, whether it's like an activity or lower than grade level? Can you talk a little bit more about what is not grade level?
Yes, sir, absolutely. Sometimes exactly what you said is what is going on. There's an activity happening at that moment, or the teacher is actually teaching a small group at that moment that is at a standard below, because that group, that was their common need. And so sometimes it really is that. Although we have had a couple of times that a teacher has just taken it down a little bit, sometimes to introduce it to the kids. They bring it to the most basic part of it, and then we have only caught them at the first part, and then they were going to up the rigor over time. See that in math a lot. We'll see that very basic level 1, we're adding and subtracting, but we're adding and subtracting to get ready for 4-step problems. And so that, you're exactly right. That's why we sometimes see that. But we try to be very authentic and make sure that we still gauge it as it is at that moment, because it's a snapshot. It's just a quick snapshot.
Are assignments on Schoology or whatever online platform we use, is that assessed, or is that part of the sample size or the observations?
No, what we do is myself, Dr. Starr, any district employee or principal or assistant principal, we go in with an iPad or a phone or whatever the case may be, and it's just that. It may be at the beginning of the period, it may be at the middle of the class, or that some kind of closure activity. And we try to stay a minimum of 10 minutes to get a true depiction of what's going on. You can't just go in there and 10 minutes sometimes isn't long enough. Really, you need to be about 20 to get a real snapshot of what's going on in that room. But we just go in there, and going back to the 4 main areas that Dr. Starr described earlier, we basically mark observed or not observed on these categories right here. Sometimes it's okay to be not observed. We even have on some of the questions not applicable, because it's just, an assessment is on one of those, and there's just not an assessment going on when we walk in there, so they would just be non-applicable. So we go in there and look at these items in real time to see what we're seeing, and then follow up with the teacher on things that we may not be seeing. One of the biggest ones that you'll see is the pacing. And that was my problem. I would be teaching World War II forever if I could. So you have to teach all of the standards in that class and keep on pace, which is difficult to do, sometimes the kids aren't where they need to be, so, you know, the teacher has to make that balance of trying to meet the needs while also moving on at the same time. So that's probably the bigger ones that you'll see in terms of, is it on grade levels? They're probably not where they need to be in the curriculum.
Do we have a observation percentage goal, whether it's like 75 or 80%, 90%?
The goal is always 100% is what we tell them. And, you know, like I said, you're working with different people, you know, every year sometimes. And I don't know if we'll ever get there, but that's always the goal, is to meet every teacher on where they are. And the magic happens when the principal or myself or whoever comes after in the post-conference and when we talk to that teacher about things that we saw with the expectation that they get better.
So are classrooms visited multiple times, or is each observation really like one classroom per quarter or per year?
Every time we go in, we use one, and it just depends on where that teacher is and the need of support that they have at that time.
Okay. I don't know if 100% goal would be realistic, right? If I'm sure it's understandable to, as you said, to meet the students where they are, or do particular activities to meet the students' needs and then to bring them up. But I would be interested to see a certain type of goal, whether it's a percentage growth goal per year or a minimum 75% or 80%, something that leaves a little bit of room to allow teachers a little bit of autonomy to meet students where they are.
I can't say that 99% of our classrooms are safe and now we good. You know what I mean? I have to keep that 100% just for that fact. But I hear what you're saying, and we do establish that really with our school improvement plans and just where each individual campus is.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say our school improvement plans are specific goals around instructional growth, but also on this, what we're looking for as a district is continuous improvement. We really need our trends to go up and not lose ground on a regular basis. And we'll keep bringing this information to you so that we're putting that out front, that's a real expectation, is that we see these numbers continue to improve, and also the number of actual observations continues to improve. So great questions.
And so that I know that we all want it to be improved and better, and that there's so much that goes into it. But student engagement seems to be the lowest one across the board, which also has 9 different things that you guys are evaluating. So are those the 9 things that you're marking observed or not observed? Is that maybe why you feel like that one is so much lower? Because there's 9 things you're looking for? Am I getting that right? I mean, are you looking for those 9 specific things?
Yes, ma'am,
Okay.
you're exactly right. There is a lot more inside student engagement. And what we've noticed, though, is with the increase that we're getting in student engagement, that is showing better on looking at the instruction and the on-grade level and the student behavior for the safe learning. They're kind of tied in. And I do want to make one little comment on the teachers, because it feels like you're thinking we're really leaning only on teachers and telling them what to do and improve. That's really not the only piece of this at all. It is a trend data type of instrument, and so it helps us, like I said, to really figure out what professional development is needed. But on the flip side of that, we've been able to really help teachers that didn't know an avenue and needed help with what Mr. Mahan talked about earlier, some student support. And so it really does help just keep us as a Fort Smith Public School District improving in every classroom, every day, as much as possible.
I have a question. Would the teachers be like, that's a good one, that so they can receive help, right? Can they request to be observed? Like if they have a class that's like, every class is different. You could have a great activity and nobody would ever like it.
Yes.
You just never know. So would they be able to be like, oh, I need to be observed so you can kind of see? Because I think that would make a difference.
Several of our principals, at least at the elementary level, and I'll let Dr. Jones speak to the secondary level, they obviously love what they're teaching many, many times, and they do have pineapples and different things where teachers can say, hey, I'm teaching this on this day, please come. And I do know my principals often are asked to come in, and it could be for various reasons. I'm asked when I come into the building, sometimes the teacher will say, come see this, come watch. What they really mean is, you take a group and take care of this with me and help us, and it's fun, and I absolutely love it. But yes, they absolutely can do that, and we really enjoy that part of it.
Other questions, feedback from the board? Okay, thank you both.
There's one
Go
more
right ahead.
presentation on the seal of biliteracy. Am I doing that right now, Mr. Mahan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think it's a different presentation.
The floor is yours, Dr. Jones.
Real quick.
I think we got a couple more, don't we? Yeah.
This is just letting you guys know that at the seal of biliteracy, let me start with that, is a distinction awarded by the Arkansas State Board of Education that just acknowledges a student is exhibited proficiency in English and an additional language, and it's good for a college application, and it's good to let an employer know that they have this skill set. And those are our improved numbers at both North Side and South Side. I'm standing up here talking to you about it, but our Director of Special Programs, Crystal Smith, really leads the charge on this and has been very intentional about making sure that we give these kids access. Mr. Pruitt and Mr. Carter and I have also been talking about how this also affects our state letter grade because it's now considered a diploma of merit. So the more students that we identify and get to take and pass these assessments will be better for our schools and be better opportunities for our kids alike. Any questions related to the seal of biliteracy?
How do we increase the number of students engaging in this program?
I think we have to be, and we haven't been, we have to be more intentional about identifying kids in our middle schools and follow those kids as they come up, because it's just like with the community service. We've always had kids doing community service hours. They just haven't been recording them in any kind of systematic way. So we have to identify them and then get them to take it to see the improvement.
I think there are plenty more students, particularly at Northside, who we can capture.
No question. And Southside will surprise you. I mean, really, it's a lot more over there that's capable of that. So.
All right. All right. Thank you, Dr. Jones.
All right, thank you.
Who's up next?
Next, Dr. Udaj, going to give you an update on Computer Science Academy opening up in the fall at Chaffin Middle School, and they're going through the application process currently. I think it might have concluded today, one part of it. You're up.
All right, that's correct. In fact, Mr. Clark's here, said they got a few more tomorrow, but we are doing interviews with those students. So just an update on Chaffin's Computer Science Academy. We've modeled it after what you see at Darby, the Health Science Academy, and the plan is next year we're going to roll out 6th grade. There'll be 50 students in that first cohort, 2 classes of 25. Mr. Clark has been interviewing those students. We had 70 applicants, so we'll get that down to 50. And this is all going at the same time as what's happening at Darby with their application process as well. That'll start next year. 27, 28, we'll have 6th and 7th grade, so we'll be able to have 2 grades out there. And then in 28, 29, we plan to have 8th grade actually come to Peak for half a day. So in these classes, these students are learning their core curriculum through the lens of computer science. They're getting computer science elective as well, and then they're still able to take their elective courses in the other part of the day. Go ahead, next slide. So the computer science pathways, and this is the important part, because these students will be so advanced when they finish the CSA program, they'll actually be able to come to Peak earlier than other students. So we have a cybersecurity program that will be starting at Peak next year, and they'll have access to that in 9th grade. The idea is that they'll have gotten credit for their intro to computer science in 8th grade, and when they come to Peak, they'll be able to finish that program and then go right into the University of Arkansas Fort Smith Network Engineering Technology program. And they would be able to ideally get an associate's degree. And so that's one of the options, but you can see there's also options at Northside and Southside in the mobile app development and in the computer software applications. So lots of options for these students as they come out of those programs. And then just on the timeline, we had an open house at Chaffin, Mr. Clark held. It was well attended on November 10th. The application window is open from the 10th through the 5th of December. They're finishing up interviews tomorrow, and the students and their family will be notified this Friday by noon. And the induction ceremony will be held in the spring. As far as construction and furniture and staffing, we're looking at updating the power and connectivity in the 2 6th grade classes for next year. We've purchased computers, furniture, and some new line boards already, and we are posting the positions in January. And then we're planning for the 7th and 8th grade phases. We're in that planning phase now. All right. Any questions?
Board members? It's an exciting program. I remember when we approved this not too long ago. Ms. Kraft?
I hope our UAFS faculty able to help you guys with some of the curriculum and the recommendations for equipment and all those things. I hope. Yes?
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
we're
good.
working with the UAFS as well.
Like, do I need to get any phone numbers
Mhm.
for you? I'm just making sure. Okay, good. Like, I want to make sure that that's a good segue for what
Yes.
they're learning with us. And then if they choose to go to UAFS, that's that curriculum, easy transition and
And
they've
it's
got all
nice
those
that-
parts ahead of time.
The cybersecurity program will be a good complement to the networking program we already
Awesome.
have out there. So it'll really be 2 new pieces for that.
Good.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Udo.
Thank you, sir. And now Mr. Homnick will give a report on adult education. Exciting event tomorrow night with the fall adult education graduation. Looking forward to that, as always. Mr. Homnick, come on down, please, sir.
Looking like a James Bond villain tonight. That's right. Blofeld, the floor is yours.
Well, good evening, Mr. Person and board members, Mr. Mahan. I am from Spectre. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, thank you so much. Again, my name is Matthew Hominick, and I'm the director of the Fort Smith Adult Education Center. And so I'm pleased to be here tonight to give you an update on some of the great things that are happening there at our school. First thing I wanted to mention is just, again, our mission is to prepare students to transition into higher education, career readiness, and the workforce. And to aid us in that mission, we offer a variety of programs. Firstly is our adult basic education, which consists of math, science, social studies, reading, language arts. We offer English as second language classes at different levels. We offer GED preparation, and I will say one of my advisors was texting me back there and said that we had 8 students earn their GEDs today alone. So yeah, that's fantastic. So that's 88 GEDs since our last graduation. That's great. So we offer occupational safety, health administration certifications. I can't talk. Wage workforce preparation, which offers digital literacy training, financial literacy training, resume writing, and interview skills to our students. We partner with various organizations to provide residential construction, welding opportunities, electrical apprenticeship programs, as well as plumbing apprenticeship programs. We have in-house a pharmacy tech program, an educational paraprofessional program, and we also offer social services. We have a SNAP ENT coordinator that we work with, and we work with River Valley Behavioral quite a bit. But we are connected to many other social services in the community. We have a Work It closet where we take donations and we offer clothes to our students who are seeking professional opportunities, so going into interviewing. We also have a food bank, which we partner with student services and the social workers in the district to provide a food bank for not only the students at Adult Ed, but even families and students throughout the district. And we also have child care services for our students. So for a very, very small fee, our students can come and learn and drop off their students at our daycare center and learn knowing that their kids are safe and close by. Just a little bit about our numbers and comparing the last 2 full program years. You can see there we have staff. We did have a few staff retire, so you'll see that there is a difference there in our full-time and part-time employees. During the 23-24 school year, we had 1,447 students enroll and participate in our programs. In the program year of 24-25, that number increased to 1,535. You can see there a breakdown of the different students who earned 12 or more hours. We call those students participatory. And you can see the breakdown of the different categories: adult basic education, English language learners, GED graduates, and in the majority of those categories, we've seen a year-to-year increase in those. And then if you look at our GED pass rates for the 23-24 school year, 87% of our GED students passed and completed their GED. And last year, 24-25 program, 88% of our students completed that. And that's just a testament to our ABE teachers, ESL teachers, and our staff, their hard work. By way of comparison, those numbers are well above the state average and the national average. So very pleased with our staff and our students and their hard work. Finally, some other good news. Well, not finally, but getting close to there. Is our overall E&E. So if you think about how schools receive a letter grade, this is basically the adult ed equivalent of receiving a letter grade. And this is also tied to how much funding we receive. And so it's called our E&E, effective and efficient score. And if you look there in the 23-24, the state and federal benchmark that we had to meet was 92%. And we came in at 128.38% for those metrics. And then last year, the 24-25 program year, we came in at the benchmark for state and federal was set at 101.41%, and we came in at 130.05%. And again, what goes into those metrics? If you look there, the educational functional gains. Every student that enters our program, they take a pre-test for the TABE or the Class E, and we assess their current knowledge as they enter our program. After 40 hours of instruction, we post-test them. And so if a student came in at a level 3, it goes levels 1 through 6. But let's say a student came in at a 3, and they post-test after 40 hours, and they get a 4 or 5, then that is an educational functional gain. And so the state in those metrics of our E&E says so many ones have to, a percentage of your ones have to grow and make a gain. So many percentage of your 3s, 4s, 5s have to make that educational functional gain. Also our GED numbers. How many GEDs do our students earn and complete? Workplace integrated education training, that's our apprenticeship programs, like the plumbing, the electrical, the residential construction. That's also our educational paraprofessional, our pharmacy technician training. So they're looking at how many students complete that. And then finally, is the second and fourth quarter earnings of our students. So when they exit our program, the state actually goes back and gets tax data, and if they can't find that, then we do what's called a manual outcome, and we actually reach out to those students, and we find out where are they employed, what is their earning income, and we record that. And so the state is evaluating us based on those numbers as well. So all those factor in to determine our funding and determine our E&E percentage and score. Some other highlights. This fall we had our educational career and expo, and we had some great sponsors: American Welding Laboratories, 100 Families, Fortrex, ArcBest, the Greater Fort Smith Home Builders Association, and we had 33 vendors who showed up at our school for this job fair and career fair, and 18 of those, the majority of them, were employers, and students were filling out applications there and getting jobs. And there were also social services and other educational training opportunities. And so I think, again, there were about over 300 students that showed up for that. And so it was a great success. And finally, though, we have numbers and all that, but what does that translate into our students' lives? And, you know, that's really what we're here for, is for our students. And how does our mission and all that we do and all those numbers work to help our students succeed? And so this is Poo Naporn Wangsenkow. He has been a student of ours for several years. He's an English language learner. He came to us first learning English. He gained some confidence and worked 2 jobs while he was attending the Fort Smith Adult Education Center. And as he gained that confidence in those language skills, he said, you know what, I think I'm ready to get into the ABE program and do the GED. So he earned his GED at the Adult Ed Center. And he said, you know what, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I think I've got this thing down. And he said, I'm going to go to school. So he enrolled at UA Fort Smith, and he is now finishing his second year as a computer science major, making the dean's list and doing a great job. And we have many, many more success stories like that.
I see him in the library almost every day. He is doing so well. He
Yes.
is. He's doing so well.
Very good. Yes. Excellent. And thank you. And that's pretty much all I have. If you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to address those.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hominick.
All right, thank you.
All right, board members, this is a presentation item only. No action is required. Good information all around. Our next agenda item is to hear a presentation regarding recommendation to consider right-sizing Carnell and Spradling Elementary Schools. Mr. Mahan.
Yes, you'll remember back in May of '25, this board approved this presentation that we are bringing you tonight around options for attendance area zones for Carnell and Spradling as a result of the right sizing committee's recommendation. Of course, we'll do a presentation tonight, allow you some time to consider this until January 26th board meeting, in which we'll come back and ask for your approval to move toward what we will recommend. Appreciate the work of Dr. Bone, our right sizing committee, in bringing this forward. This exercise is based on our desire to be more physically and instructionally efficient as a district and always be competitive in this region. So, Dr. Bone?
Good evening, President Person, Mr. Mahan, and Board. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about, as Mr. Mahan said, following up on the recommendation that was made to you back in May, to tell you about what proposals we have for you should you consider right-sizing both Carnell and Spradling as was recommended back in May. I want to go back in time for you and help you to remember how this first began. We started a long-range facilities planning committee back in 2023. And the goal really wasn't just about right-sizing, it was the goals that you see above. It was really about looking at how can we make sure long-range that we are planning for the future of our facilities in our district. We are looking at how we manage our assets, equitable facilities, and making sure we have safe environments. So that's the why behind the committee that met. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about right-sizing, because as the committee was exploring all of those things to meet their goals, right-sizing naturally evolved out of that, because right-sizing is really looking at the future. Are we aligning the size and capacity of our buildings with where we currently stand in our projected student enrollment? So again, looking at all of the data that was presented, data that included the age of our facilities, that included the enrollment trends, where buildings are being built, homes are being built, our demographic trends like I brought to you last month when we looked at the Zonda presentation. When they looked at all of those things, we had recommendations come forth. If you'll go back in time, we recommended at one point the right sizing of Trustee and of Elementary. And both of those buildings, we proceeded with that, and we have then absorbed those students into other buildings within our district to become more fiscally responsive. Back in October and November, we began sharing this information with all of the parents and staff at buildings that could possibly be impacted as we bring this recommendation for you. And we will come forward to you right now just with a presentation and update, and I'll be back in January for a vote. Just to take you back to what happened last month, we had Zonda come in, and this is just one of the slides they presented when we're looking at a forecast for where our trends in enrollment are. Again, it's almost like a perfect storm. Right now, as you have seen, as we've continued to share with you, our enrollments are trending down. Our enrollment is trending down. Our neighborhoods are shifting, as Zonda presented to you, where the growth is. So around the areas where we are looking at right-sizing, there's not growth in housing. There's not a trend of upward enrollment in those areas. So when you're thinking about Orr and you're thinking about Spradling and their location and what they are closer to, as well as where the housing development is and the enrollment trends lie, it's just what made sense to the committee to move forward. So I want to talk to you a little bit about also the fiscal part of this. Fiscally, we also look at what is our per pupil expenditure for students in our elementary schools based on their enrollment. So when you look at Carnell, for instance, with Carnell having an actual student count of about 124 students in the 24-25 school year who were zoned to Carnell, that per pupil expenditure is $15,000 per pupil. And that's simply because if you have 124 students, right, and you still have a full-time principal, a full-time assistant principal, full-time counselor, full-time OAs in the office, all of the full-time staff to support 124 students, whereas if you have a building that has 479 students with the same full-time staff of a full-time principal, assistant principal, and so forth, like Woods, and you got a $7,000 per pupil expenditure, that's where your difference comes in, because you're still spending quite a bit of money to support 124 students in one building versus what you would in a building that was more of the right size. I need you to understand that our funding matrix for the state of Arkansas is based on a virtual, like a proposed school of 500. So that's how the state sets our matrix. It says that if you're going to fund an elementary school, we're going to pretend that every school has about 500, and that's where we set your funding formula. So that's how you look at your per pupil funding.
Dr. Bone, will you explain 124 there
Yes.
versus the 150?
So the 124 does not include the pre-K. It includes students who are actually zoned to Carnell. They actually live in the Carnell zone. I know earlier someone mentioned about the other students that we placed at Carnell. True, we have, because there was a lot of space there, we were able to do that. But actual students who live in the neighborhood and who are zoned to Carnell, that's your actual number. That's not pre-K. Our pre-K can go anywhere in any of our buildings, and we do that based on space and the number of students that we have that fit the area. So there may be students who are, if we had a pre-K in Carnell, that may not all be Carnell zoned students, if that makes sense. Just like with our special needs populations, what we've done in the district is just place classes where we have space to be able to place them and to try to add more students to Carnell because it was sitting at about 124. That's what we did.
Can you also explain how that's a comparison of apples and apples?
Yes, and so the per pupil expenditure does not include any special ed funding or any pre-K funding. It's just basic foundation funding for regular gen ed students. And that's on every one of those counts, so that you could just kind of compare apples to apples, because some schools have more special needs populations in them. It would skew the amount of per student funding. During the process, because the recommendation that we got from Zonda when they look at the zonings, it should you proceed with wanting to right size, impacted multiple schools. We met at every school that could possibly be impacted and had multiple meetings. I see Ms. Hall nodding her head because she attended several of those with us, where we had parent meetings and staff meetings. We offered 2 times for parents to meet as well as for staff, and the principals in those buildings also sent out the survey and the information to their parents if they could not be in attendance. The surveys that we used were also posted on the Fort Smith Forum, as well as our social media outcomes, so that you could get the results. And as I've shared with everyone, you guys had the link the moment that we sent the surveys out, so that you could kind of see what parents were thinking, as well as staff members. But that's just some of the data of people who actually showed up. Sometimes you're going to see, like at Sunnymead, you had 0 parents show up because they really weren't going to be impacted other than to receive students. A lot of parents didn't show up in the schools that were just receiving. It was more in the schools where, like Carnell and Spradling, where they would be impacted as far as their students moving to another location. Some of the survey concerns that were brought out, and you heard some of them today, was that Carnell has a bigger and better facility. Well, Carnell does have a larger facility. A lot of the square footage is in the hallways. If you look at how wide those hallways are, and you also look at the size of their cafeterias and the size of other spaces, yeah, the facility is larger. But when you look at actual usable space as far as classrooms that meet standards, 5 of the 21 classrooms at Carnell meet state standards currently. It was suggested that, yeah, you could fix that. You could, if you could access the funding to do so, because it would cost millions of dollars to renovate those classrooms to make them the size they needed to be. And then you would be doing that in a school where there's no growth in the community around it and there's no additional student growth. A lot of the area in Carnell is becoming industrialized, and so you don't have a lot of family housing in that area, as Zonda showed you last month, when you look at where the development and housing growth is. 16 of the 18 classrooms at Beard, however, do meet state standards currently, and 17 of the 19 at Kavanaugh do meet state standards currently. We have walked each of those buildings to make sure that they are able to receive the students should we proceed with right-sizing Carnell. Carnell students' class size was one of the things that was brought up, and it was said that we were not allowing students to go to Carnell. That is inaccurate as well. So when you look at it, at the beginning of the year, we had 10 students who were going to be kindergarten students who could have enrolled there, but we were not going to place a teacher there for 10 students when it's a 1-to-20 ratio. One first grade student was class size, 1 second, 3 third, 2 fourth, and 5 fifth. Those are the number of students who were class sized, because you don't start a whole nother class for 5 students or for 1 additional students, and we have to meet state standards. And we do meet state standards. We don't have classes that are over the recommended class load. But what was interesting is that when Dr. Davis's team ran the data, in our schools that are larger, the class sizes are actually smaller. Now I want you to let that soak in for just a moment. That's because you have multiple teachers, and so you're not maxed out like you would be, like in this case. So if you had 20 kindergarten students, that's all you can have in a classroom by standards. Well, if you have four kindergarten teachers, you're likely to have more room there, because unless you max out that and then have to class size over. But in smaller schools, when you have 1 teacher there and then you have other kids move in, you don't have that ability. You're maxing out that class size because you don't have another place to shuffle the students. So those are the actual numbers. And then another point that was brought up in the survey is that smaller schools build better relationships and are better for students. And I think that we have a lot of schools that would differ, and we have parents who differ in that too. Our larger schools have great relationships with their kids. One of our values is built on relationships. So we do have staff in all of our schools who are dedicated to building relationships with their students, and they do know their kids' names. I watched our largest school, one of them at Sunnymead, and the principal I dare you to say she doesn't know basically every student's name there, because that's what our staff does. And that's what we want them to do. The staff at Carnell is amazing, the staff at Spratling is amazing, but so is the staff at Cook, and so is the staff at Sunnymead and Fairview, where the schools are larger. They're just good teachers and good staff members who do know their children and who do interact with them the way that we want them to. So then that more opportunities for collaboration exist on larger campuses is some of the feedback that we got, which wasn't a concern. One of the concerns was about traffic. Outside entities always assist us in reviewing traffic patterns. We know that we have traffic issues. When I first moved here in 2021, Sutton, which is one of the schools that would be impacted, actually was over 500, and the traffic patterns were about the same as they are at the size that they are now. Some of that exists because some parents line up at 2 o'clock and they just wait, they want to be first to pick up their kids, and sometimes that causes traffic to back out onto the road, and that just happens, and we remind them. It gets better for a while, and then sometimes it circles right back, but that didn't change from 2021 when we had over 500 students to where they were sitting now at around 300. So we will also review the traffic patterns, as we always have, with the police department to suggest any improvements, such as we did with Ballman, which relieved some of their traffic anxiety this year. Most of the students impacted will be offered transportation, so that was a concern that was brought up that we can alleviate. And then our HR department always works with our faculty to make sure that they are placed. We were able to, through attrition, place everyone in the schools that we've previously right-sized. So one of the concerns was about our staff, and our department does a great job of meeting with staff individually to make sure that their needs are met, because they may all follow the student, or they may say, hey, I live closer to another school, I'd prefer this. But our staff who are impacted by this get first right of refusal on open positions. So, just to address some of the concerns that were mentioned. One of the things that I want to go back to is that we talked about the fact that we are funded on a 500 student model. We have currently about 2 schools who are over 500. 3 of them sit between $4 and $4.99, 5 between $300 and $3.99, 6 between $200 and $2.99, and then we have the 1 Carnell who is under $200. When I think about the size of our district and right sizing, I often compare us to Springdale, and I think back to the time when I first moved here and my previous history of knowing about Fort Smith. At one time, we needed all of these neighborhood schools. We were at one time the 2nd largest district and the 2nd largest city in the state of Arkansas. We are not that anymore. We are the 5th largest district in the state of Arkansas. Currently, Springdale is the largest district in the state of Arkansas. They have 18 elementary schools. When I first moved here, we had 19, and we have about 10,000 students fewer than they do. We are not at the right size where enrollment matches our actual our facilities. And that is what this is about, really, when you look at it. So I want to talk to you about the proposals that were brought forth to us for the demography, from the demographer. The first school we're going to look at is Spradling, and I can step over to the map for you, or we can talk from here, but we do have the maps here for you. When you look at our, stay on the mic, I'll do that, because my voice is not great anyway, is it? Okay, gotcha. It was from cheering from the Chiefs, not really. Anyway. It's too soon. The original, we have the original zone map over here for you, but the proposal A is the one that we are truly going to recommend for you to vote on when we come back in January. Proposal A is what I call the easy button, and it's simply expanding the Sutton Elementary Zone to encompass Spradling. Currently, you'll see that as of the date that I pulled this, which I think was December 3rd, Spradling was sitting at 275 students in their school. Their maximum building capacity is 506. Sutton was sitting at 308 students on that day. Their maximum building capacity is 701. We'd like to try to get around 80% capacity. We don't really necessarily want 100% capacity for elementary schools. We can operate above that at our secondary schools, but not in elementary. So when you combine those numbers into Sutton, and if you've been to Sutton and Spradling, you can look down the street and see one from the other. They're not even a half-mile away from each other. You would end up with 583 students, just a little bit over that 80% capacity, and well under the maximum capacity of what that building could hold. Again, when I was here, moved here in 2021, Sutton had over 500 students at that time, so it would kind of be bringing them back up to where they were a few years ago and bringing them back to a right size for that area. Any questions about that one? I'm sorry. Okay.
So, Dr. Brown, if that recommended proposal were approved, what would that mean for the pre-K students?
If that recommended proposal were approved, that would mean that our pre-K director would look at the pre-K students to figure out where to put them. So right now, Spradling did not have a pre-K, Sutton did, and so it's like Sutton would have, probably still have a pre-K, it'd still be room. You still have room for one, but I won't speak for her. She'll look at where the students are coming from to make the right recommendation of where to put them. Doesn't mean we don't have one. Great question, thank you. Proposal B would involve Morrison Elementary, and it would look at taking the majority of the students from Spradling and moving them to Sutton. But there's an area around Plum Street that's just east of Midland Boulevard that has an apartment complex. It encompasses about 46 students in the apartment complex and the little surrounding neighborhood that would then move them across Midland to go to Morrison. Now, they would be offered transportation should we go with that route. We did not make this recommendation for a couple of reasons. One, we've already right-sized Trustee, and Morrison received some of those students, which brought Morrison up to closer to a right-sized building. And it would be splitting the students from Spradling and sending them to 2 different schools. So that's the main reason, and across Midland Boulevard, even though we would provide transportation. Proposal C is the one that I like the least. I think my face talks when I don't want to, but I don't like this one at all because it not only disrupts more schools. So this proposal, even though it's a feasible one from the demographer's standpoint, you would move all of the students from Spradling Elementary into Sutton Elementary, as we said before, but then you would displace students who currently attend Sutton Elementary but live around between the Johnson Street and Albert Pike area into Sunnymead, adding about an additional 60-something students to Sunnymead and increasing their student population. Sunnymead is already one of our larger elementary schools. There's no real need to do that or to displace the other group of students, which is why we did not like that option. And not many people voted for it at all either. The majority of those, if you looked at your survey, were again for Proposal A. One of the things that I want to bring back to your attention before we move on to Carnell is that we really are looking at trying to get to 80% target utilization of our facilities, which would mean about a 625 minimum student capacity in our larger buildings. But again, trying to keep getting as close to that 500 range as we can, or to 80% of that building's maximum capacity is what we're doing. And we're trying to do that so that we can allow for increased collaboration in our buildings with additional teachers. We can have full-time art, music, and PE teachers as a benefit of this, and we can access additional funding once we get to that point for future building projects. And I don't know what happened there. For future building projects, and to do some renovations if we need to. We would be able to access over 60% of the funding from the state if we ever got to that right size. So let's move on to Carnell. Looking at the Carnell situation, currently at Carnell, or as the date I pulled this, there were 152 students and in the Carnell building. When you look at that and you divide those students among Kavanaugh and Beard, each of the proposals will be about dividing the students among Kavanaugh and Beard, expanding Kavanaugh and Beard's attendance area. It's just where the division happens. Right? So the first proposal, which is the one we would recommend, would be expanding the Beard zone east of Jenny Lynn Road and removing the remainder of the current Carnell zone to Kavanaugh Elementary. This gives Kavanaugh a few more students than Beard in this particular option. We like this option better, working with transportation, but any of the three options would be fine. This is just the one that the committee recommended based on looking at all factors. The next proposal for Carnell would be to, again, divide the students, expand the Kavanaugh and the Beard zone. This puts students on Kavanaugh and Beard along Zero Street, expanding the zones south of Zero Street for Beard and removing the remainder of the Carnell zone to Kavanaugh Elementary School. Still gives Kavanaugh a little bit more than Beard. Proposal C, you're still looking at Zero Street, but you do have an area east of Jenny Lynn Road that would be moved to Beard, which gives Beard a few more students than the other two proposals, as you can see by the numbers. But if you look at the numbers on each of these, it still keeps them around their 80% capacity, and it doesn't nearly max out those buildings as far as what the capacity that they can hold. So to talk about, again, right sizing and why we're doing it, just to remind you as we move forward, we've had a long-range planning committee looking at this for a while. And Carnell has been considered each time, as well as Spradling. These names have come up over and over again, but this is where we are at this point with the recommendation from the committee. Previously, we have obviously right-sized Trustee and Orr very successfully. The staff has been integrated in. The students are doing great. You've got great collaboration among those staff with the students there. We have increased access to the resources and as far as full-time art, music, and PE, and that's huge. That's something we've heard our staff say over and over again is a big benefit to our students. We have a more efficient use of taxpayer money because it's up to us to be fiscally responsible with our taxpayer funds, and this is one way to do that. We can also reinvest those savings to help with additional student support. Some of the things that we're hearing from the listening tours are all around student behavior. This is just another way to help us have more money to put into raises, to put into things like additional support for students. Again, it's based on a 500 student funding model, and if we get our schools closer to that, we're just going to be more fiscally responsible. So what were our next steps? I'll bring this back to you in January for a board vote with any updates that we may receive or any updated questions that you may have to clarify. Should you vote to proceed with this, then we will go back out and we will have additional parent and staff meetings and talk to them about what this looks like for each of their students. And the transportation meeting, the transportation needs, making sure that all of the needs are met for the students who could be impacted. Then we will go back to the long-range facilities planning meeting so that they can talk about, and probably in February, should you proceed with this, what would we do with those buildings? Should we agree to right size? Then they will be coming back to the drawing board, back to their first thing of how do we repurpose those buildings and take possibly some buildings that are much more depreciated in value and taking them offline to repurpose the buildings that would be empty as a result of the right sizing. And they'll come back with a recommendation to you, the board, to make a decision on that. So those would be our next steps. Just to come back to this maximum capacity of our buildings, when you look at the maximum number of students that each of these buildings could hold, many of these buildings on the far end they cannot even hold the 500, but as you come closer to that 500, you're a lot more close to our funding model. Summary of those recommendations that have been brought to you before, and just to take you back to what the Long Range Facilities Planning Committee is doing. We've already made the recommendation to right size OR. That has happened already. So we've already got, we repurposed it and put our K-12 ALE over there for better use of those facilities. Some of the things that the Facilities Committee has been looking at since 2023 is our oldest buildings, the Parker Building, the Rogers Building, and the Peabody Building. Parker holding all of our curriculum and instruction and specialized programs, Rogers holding our police department and our technology department, and the Peabody Building our adult ed facility. So those are buildings that are our most appreciated in value that they would be looking at repurposing. And just making sure that we have classrooms that meet the state standards, which I showed you that Beard and Kavanaugh have more classrooms that do meet state standards than Cornell. And just these are the things that that committee will be studying going forward. When I come back to you in January, this will be the recommendation. And I'll present it to you once again, and I'll separate the recommendations out so that you as a board can decide to do nothing, to move on one or the other, or to move on both. Okay. Any questions for me?
Thank you for the very thorough presentation, Dr. Bone. Questions, comments from the board at this juncture?
I have a couple of questions.
Go right ahead.
In the survey for Carnal, parents and staff had chosen option C with the majority, and you're recommending option A. Can you speak to why not C?
I honestly, I've always said, my personal opinion is I didn't have a dog in the fight. Either of those would work beautifully. Either of the three options would. The reason we chose option A as a committee to look at was mainly transportation and just looking at the transportation along Jenny Lind, the split. You can still transport either way. It was just an easier lift for our transportation department. It's not a big deal.
And then with Spradling, we have, I don't know how many students or families that attend Spradling, but that live in those west apartments right near Midland, off of 50th. And it's a little over a mile from Sutton. And was it 2 miles that our policy is with the busing? So they wouldn't qualify for any type of transportation, correct?
They would not qualify for any type of transportation, but neither did the students who lived at Trustee who went to Howard or who went to Morrison. However, our transportation department worked with those families to transport anyway.
We traditionally will set up a route, at least for a year, for those families that need assistance, to not make it just one quick change. Traditionally, we found that just very few students actually access it, but we still try to set up a transition period for transportation for the furthest away.
And just as part of the information gathering and a look at alternatives with Carnal and the number of classrooms that don't meet state standards, what would be a ballpark cost to bring those up to standards? Because I know that's a concern from some families and community members. Whether you have that now or not, that's fine, but I think it'd be good for us to look at the alternatives so that we can see what our comparisons are.
I bet you don't have that off the top of your head, but it's several million, isn't it? Come on
While
up.
he's coming up, I'll respond to that as well. There'll be a very ballpark cost.
I wasn't going to give a
but
ballpark cost at
I didn't think
all.
you
I was
were.
going to talk
There's also-
about the classrooms themselves. So if we
I'll
just stay
say-
within the,
let me-
okay.
Let me go ahead and finish. But we would also have to rezone to add students to that Carnell zone from another school, because currently the students are at 150 in that zone. So just building the space to be up to standards doesn't solve the problem. The problem would have to be, how do we rezone other elementaries to feed into that particular zone? So it's twofold.
As in transportation.
Facilities, and, well, you're going to take your students from another school to occupy this classrooms that are now up to state standards, because they're not in that region currently. So just want to throw that in there too.
Okay.
So to make those classrooms meet the current programmer requirement for an elementary school, we'd have to actually reduce the number of classrooms within the building. So if there's X number of classrooms, then I'd ask an architect, okay, to start with this classroom, what do we have to do? I have to have 1,000 square foot here. I have to have 1,000 square foot here. Then eventually, your classroom right now, how many classrooms now? 21? 21 could be reduced by a pretty large amount, because you have to maintain within the walls. Now, if you build outside the walls, so a new classroom, on the average, a new build is going to be about $500,000 per classroom to meet the state standard.
But I think the better point is, why would you, when there's no growth in that area, unless you are trying to take from other schools to move there? And I think that's the point Mr. Mahan was making. There's no, the growth is just not there.
And then my last question, and then I'll recede my time. So if Kavanaugh is closed, or sorry, not Kavanaugh, if Carnell is closed, we have Orr that's closed, there's kind of a pocket without an elementary school within that area of the city. 10 years from now, if demographics shift again or population shift again, what would our options be? So thinking a little bit even longer term, we've got that pocket without an elementary school. What would, if it shifts, what would we do?
Fairview has really fulfilled that pocket need. It's such a large campus and has a large capacity. But 10 years from now, as we continue this discussion, if the board sees fit, you're also going to have your facilities in a position where you have 67.5% funding to update and add on to whatever region where you're seeing some growth. So say we see growth in this area, this pocket, and we need to update and build on to Kavanaugh, and I'm just throwing it out there. Now we're getting closer to 80% capacity, so that the funding to renovate that facility, to add on, and then eventually have newer facilities for our students, because the other part is our buildings are so old. That funding would be there. That's the end goal, but that's going to take some time. We're not there yet, but you gave me a 10-year out question, so I think hopefully 10 years will be a little further down the road, closer to capacity.
Yes. And I think, interestingly enough, it's something I keep forgetting, and we say this all the time, we forget it. When you think about Orr, when we rezoned Orr, about 100 of the students who were in the Orr zone actually lived out by Ben Guerin. So that it wasn't necessarily a neighborhood at all. It was a lot closer to Cook, which is where they ended up. Yes, out by Planters Road. I didn't either at first, and then, I did once we went through the rezoning process. So that wasn't really, that added 100 students to just, so only 100 and something of those students at Orr at that time really lived near that neighborhood, and they went to Fairview East.
There was a large stretch that we learned
Right.
in the Orr industry, that was completely industry in the Orr zone, as it is in Carnell, that I just didn't really pay much attention to until we looked at where the dots where kids were living, and there was just no kids. And then y'all go all the way down south where it's closer to Cook, actually,
Right.
kids that were in the Orr zone. So interesting, and that's a part of the industry in that area, and more growth in industry, or at least I shouldn't say more, some growth in industry and less growth in new housing in that area currently, right now. That could change.
Absolutely. And then the demographer's report is not projecting an increase at this time.
All right, who's next? Ms. Martinez, go right ahead.
I was gonna ask, so say we decide to just wait and keep the Carnell and Spradling open, are they gonna be affected, like, when it comes to staffing? Like, are you gonna change where you're gonna have to split staff, and will you do that anyways to those two schools?
I think that's a great question.
Let me respond to that.
Sure.
Of course, we're going to follow the directive of the board. We're going to make it work. Somehow, some way, we'll make it work financially if nothing happens. That's our job. That's what we do. However, there are the consequences to doing nothing is there's less funding for salary schedules. There's less funding for new programming. There's less funding to add paraprofessionals K through 3, which I mentioned earlier is something that we've heard is needed. There's less funding to, at some point, I'd love to have a behavioral therapist in our schools on every school campus. And we'd also like to have a police officer in every school campus. But we can't do those things and lose we're over 500 kids down this year. That's close to a $5 million cut next year. And then we've cut $1.5 million in federal funds with another 15% cut coming. So we can make it work. We're going to do our job, and we're going to follow the directive of the board. But it doesn't mean that our services will continue to look like they do. We may have to come back and say, we not only have to cut staffing at Carnell, but we need to cut staffing at 6 more places because we are out of funding, and that's just the reality of where we're at.
Ms. Hall?
Mine's about the kindergarten registration, new student registration, but it would really just kind of affect kindergartners. Right now, what is that looking like for the ones that live in these zones that could potentially be, those schools that could potentially be closed and rezoned somewhere else? What is that looking like on their registration? Like if I'm a parent registering my kid to go to Carnell, what's happening on that end?
So it's going to depend on what the board votes on. So right now, you're registering your kindergartner to go to the school where you want to go, right? If you're registering your kindergartner to go to Carnell, if the board votes to right size Carnell, that student would then go to either Beard or Kavanaugh, depending on where they are. Remember, so the school choice opens up as well.
Yeah,
So we're
okay.
trying to get kindergarten in right now and any new students so that they can have an opportunity to live in the zone where they are, or to go to school in the zones where they are. But the right sizing would impact them just like they do any other student.
So are the parents receiving maybe like a disclaimer, like, this is a potential?
Yes, and
Be
so
on
our
the
students,
lookout?
our student services department is letting them know what the options are
Okay.
coming forward. And so you've got, and I'm glad you brought that up, kind of, because it also it's going to impact our enrollment everywhere because people will have choice, just like they have with AAEs, but it'll be a little bit different earlier. So if you know someone, please tell them to register early so that they can try to get in their zones.
Yeah, I've been pushing that as much as I can
Yes,
too.
we've
as
been
well.
pushing it out with social
Yeah.
media and a lot of advertising. That's a great question.
Yeah, and then I just have more of a comment on the right sizing in general. I attended numerous meetings just to be a fly on the wall to hear what the parents and the staff were asking, what their concerns were, and the ones I heard over and over again were transportation and location. Not so much for Spradling, but more so for the Carnell. And then the second one was larger classrooms and meeting the needs of the student in a larger classroom. And we hear you. We do the comments that everyone, teachers, staff, and community members that you guys are putting in that survey, we do get those. We are seeing all of them as they come in. So first, I wanted to say that so that you know we are seeing them. And secondly, it's not an easy decision, whatever this decision may be, but bear with us and be patient and keep giving feedback as you can. But we do hear you, but those were the main two concerns that were repetitive every time. Throughout every meeting that I attended.
Right. And you're right, it's an emotional thing. I was an elementary principal. It would be hard for me as well. But the thing is, we're looking at the entire district and the needs of all the kids and the needs of our district as we move forward. And we are not overstuffing classrooms. I mean, we have standards that we have to meet. And it was very interesting. I had no idea the data was going to flesh out like that. But truly, in our larger schools, they tend to have smaller class sizes currently. They're not maxed.
All right, good feedback from the board. I tell you all that thank you for grappling with this tough decision, frankly, to this juncture. Thank you for the staff and administration for preparing us to this juncture to deal with this. You know, this is going to be an emotional decision regardless of how you shake it, but I would encourage each of you to continue to focus on the facts, right? And if you do get information that you're not sure about, pass it along and get good feedback. In my mind, this is probably one of the most important decisions I have left for the remainder of my term. I'm thankful that, you know, I feel like I've been at the right sizing conversation since the ground level when we first started it. And, you know, when we first started this conversation, we weren't really dealing with a decline in student enrollment. We were dealing with funding models and quite frankly, an education at an elementary model that hadn't been touched in over 30 years and probably should have been touched a long time ago, particularly after you remove an entire grade from all of your elementary schools. You're going to get a lot of space, right? We're thankful, or I'm thankful, that we started this back then and we're able to get through trustee and OR, because this year we're seeing an over 3% decline. That's over $5, maybe $6 million that we're going to see next year as a result of what happened through the LEARNS Act in year 3. And that's just reality. And so we have to make decisions accordingly. I think we owe a tremendous obligation to the taxpayer to be a good steward of tax dollars. And when we can also at the same time increase our supplementary services to our students and provide more administrative oversight at each of our schools, we're doing a good thing. But nonetheless, you're talking about someone's school, and I get that. So continue to pass along questions, feedback you get to administration, and hopefully we have a good civil discussion in January and make a good decision at that juncture. Any further feedback? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bowen.
Thank you.
Mr. Mahan. Thank you,
Appreciate
Steph.
you.
Thank you, board. We've reached board forum. First, when are we meeting? January board work session conducted on January 12th at 5:30 p.m. Is that here?
We will actually be, that's the one at Darby and
That's
Health
at
Science Academy and our clinic there.
Okay. And then regular board meeting will be January 26th. Okay, board members, other items you'd like to request bringing forward at that meeting, future meeting, or any other information you'd like to share? We'll start with Mr. Harding tonight.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all of community members and people that reached out via email or in person for your feedback, comments, and concerns. I respond to every message and I look forward to engaging in the community as much as possible. So please keep it coming, and thank you. I appreciate the participation on the surveys for Carnal and Spratling. I have read every comment and every concern, so I appreciate and I hear your voice. Thank you to staff for your presentations and your preparation in your work. It does not go unnoticed, and I really appreciate it. This past week, I had a chance to go to the ASPA, or the School Board Association Conference, and I came back even more passionate to help Arkansas get above national average. And I want to encourage parents and guardians and staff to instill a culture of academic excellence so that we can bring Arkansas up and above. That's it for me.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Harding. Ms. Lott.
As we know, I'm not as flowery as that, so good job. I will just say ditto everything he said, except for I didn't go to the meeting. But y'all brought a lot of really good information. Thank you from the presentation for renaming the buildings all the way through. I know this is a lot of hours that y'all are putting in consistently. Thank you to everyone who's got the concerns about the rezoning. It's going to be an emotional thing, but we will get through it and we will do the best we can for our community and everybody involved.
Ms. Kraft.
same to all of that as well. I have to say this because it's too funny not to. I saw Dr. Gooden at First Friday Breakfast and told him about all of this. And the first thing he said, he laughed and said, "Well, I'm not dead yet." I said, "Well, I appreciate that, Dr. Gooden. Please don't change that. We would like for you to stick around a little bit longer. Don't get any ideas." But it was a very funny conversation, and he was flattered, and I've known him my whole life as well, and so I appreciated that humor from him, like only he could say, "Well, I'm not dead yet." So excited about all of that. It was all great letters about Dr. Gooden. Prayers for all of our teachers. It's the last week of class, and you have to put up with these children for 4 or 5 more days before the Christmas break. Prayers for y'all. And yeah, Carnell and Spradling, I know that this is hard, and this is not what we want to see, and this is not a fun decision for any of us. So many of these things that are out of our control. We need more people in Sebastian County to have children, and we need Fort Smith to grow, right? I mean, we need Fort Smith to grow. We need more kids and more families to choose Fort Smith, and would love to see our population numbers and our student numbers grow in that way. Otherwise, yeah, we have tough decisions to make, and it's hard, but I agree. We'll do the best that we can for our kids and for our teachers, and go from there.
Thank you, Ms. Craft.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Mr. Whitaker.
I echo many of the same sentiments. And to Mr. Harding's point, I am a firm believer that much of the success of our students does start in the home. Some wonderful comments from some colleagues of other school boards down at ASBA in Little Rock, giving us many congratulations for the successes that we do see in our district. And with that said, Merry Christmas.
All right, Ms. Martinez.
I was going to say the exact same thing. I definitely look at the surveys, and thank you for the presenters. This is definitely a difficult decision, and so, thank you for all the work that you guys have done today.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Hall.
I did attend the conference as well, and I want to say that Fort Smith is in a really good place, and we're doing some really good things. We're already ahead of the game compared to things that other school districts are doing. Strategic planning, a lot of those school districts don't, a lot of other school districts, a couple didn't know what that was. And how does that work? And then one of them had to hire an outside company to come in and help them build their own. So big bragging points and kudos to Fort Smith School District for that. Mr. Mahan, I love seeing you in your hairnet. And there was, when they were talking about Mr. Gooden and him being visible within the school district, I am a graduate of Fort Smith School District, and I remember seeing him in buildings, and I knew who he was. And I think our kids know who you are now. And it's just been, I don't know, 6-7 months. So that says a lot. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Listen, I cannot let my son see this now. He cannot go watch it. Oh my, I can't believe we did that. 7 or 8 months. How about that one? Thank you for being so visible and so involved. It goes a long way, and it's greatly appreciated. I think that's it. Merry Christmas.
All right. Well, the ball is in our court, board, on the service center renaming. If is that something the board wants to further explore, renaming? Yes? Yeah. Further explore? Okay. Then what I'd like to propose is, January's going to be busy. Is February a realistic time? Let's place this on the board agenda for February for further discussion. At that time, if we could, I'd like an opinion from legal counsel on what we need to do if we want to move forward in light of our policy. And also, I'd like for someone from administration to talk to Dr. Gooden, make sure he's 100% on board with this. Of course, we want to be compliant with our own policy first and foremost, and if that's the case, what kind of process we'd be looking like if we wanted to go down this board. And I'd propose February, but if it needs to be March, that's fine. February or March. Okay. And everyone's good with that, right? All right. There's no, Ms. Mahan, what do you got for us?
First of all, I just want to publicly apologize. I did fail to get you some survey data on the calendar. I should have got that out to you. I just didn't do it. So I'm not a person that makes a whole lot of excuses. I just didn't get it done. So I'll do better and learn. You should have had that in your hand tonight. Also, just late breaking news. We got a leak at Ballman in the basement restroom that we are getting repaired currently, and it will not interrupt operations tomorrow because our group does a phenomenal job, but just want to make you aware that we're working on getting that repaired currently. And I just want to say Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I appreciate you congratulate our team, but appreciate the hours of work that you do and the volunteering time that you give to this board. And our kids, I always say our kids and our staff are very grateful for the work you do. So thank you, and I hope you have a great Christmas with your family and a great New Year.
There's nothing further. We're adjourned.